Hello, and welcome back to the Really Coding channel. My name is Jay. This is a installment 12 of the Cookiecutter Django series that I am trying to pull together here. This is the deployment episode, so welcome. I had a couple people request this. I've been holding off because there's a little bit to it. Alright, so we're going to go through a couple things. This might be a longer video. We'll see how this goes, okay? I do have a domain, so I'm using DigitalOcean. I don't use Heroku. I don't know AWS. I'm not an ops guy. So that is a thing. I'm working on a project right now where we are transitioning ops from what I know how to do to something very professional. And so I'm learning a lot in that experience, but this is going to be what I know. And if you probably know Linux better than I do, you probably you might know a lot of this better than me, and if you don't, then hopefully I can give you enough to go off of with some resources. And I'm going to go back through and put links in all of my videos as soon as I'm verified. I sent my ID through, so we'll see how that goes, because I've got a lot of links that go with a lot of the stuff that I've covered over the last 12 videos. So here I am in DigitalOcean. I've got a domain here. It's just a free domain that I have. It's chaotic-staging.com. I don't know what these A records are, but we're going to, I probably should have checked to see if what's up. I mean, what could be there. Nothing now. If ever there was, I deleted that A record, so I don't know where that would have been pointing to. We're going to delete those A records, and then I am going to try to get a droplet going here. Alright, so I will choose San Francisco because that is the closest data center to me, and keep that within that project there. I go with Ubuntu, however you choose to say that. I know I pronounce it wrong. I'm gonna go with a regular disk. I'm just gonna choose the $6 a month, maybe the $12 a month. I think I can run it. I think it doesn't require more than a gigabyte of CPU to run. I think on most of my websites, I think I go with the 2 gigabyte CPU. But let's see what happens with the 6. We don't need volume right now. That is something that I'll have to go over later, which is detaching. The project uses a container, a Postgres container. It's not the best solution for production. It's a quick solution. It's a good one for standing up, but there's if you've already got a project running with that, then you have to move your database, and then on top of that you have to know how to have a database like like a database cluster in DigitalOcean or on AWS. So I cannot actually remember which one of these is to this laptop, so I should have just selected all. But these are your HHS keys if you don't, or SSH keys. If you don't have an SSH key installed with DigitalOcean, I highly recommend you do that. I will be using SSH keys for all this, not passwords, so it's not that much different, but there is going to be a step in the middle for making sure that your server user has the same SSH keys as the root, so that you can lock down root, because you don't want, it's good practice to not use root after you have your user set up. I will call this test. We'll put it in that project. That's fine. Create droplet. We don't need tags. We'll let that spin up. And while that's spinning up, we are going to go over and create a fresh project. I'm not going to do anything dev-wise other than getting this stood up and showing you just some particulars about what's going on when, and the what and the where. So don't mind the mess. Let me get to, we'll go in here and create a new folder. We'll call this deploy, and we'll bash in here. Boom, boom, boom. Let me get this over into the view. All right, and how does it go? Cookiecutter GH : Cookiecutter, backslash Cookiecutter Django. And we'll say yes and see if there's any new updates with the package. I might have messed up. We are going to call this deploy test. Sure, go with J. No, so okay. I will show you how to fix this if you went with example.com. However, because I know the domain, I'm going to go ahead and put the real domain here, and it's going to save a lot of problems. But we still need to look at the solution if that wasn't possible, if it wasn't the case. Maybe you forgot, didn't notice, didn't have the domain at the time. All acceptable reasons why. I don't know why I said it doesn't really matter. Why that might have gone wrong. So we'll look at fixing that. 3, yes to Docker. 1, AWS. I might have to break this into a couple of videos. I don't know. We'll see. Because the SendGrid thing's not difficult to set up. SES, AWS SES is a little more difficult. I haven't used Mailjet. I haven't used Mailgun. I haven't used Postmark, Brevo, Spark Post, other SMTP. But really what it boils down to is you need the appropriate access keys. And with SES, you need a couple more environment variables that aren't included in the environment variable document by default next to the AWS file media management keys. So if you go SES, you have to actually, as far as in my experience, you have to actually add some variables that are missing. So it makes it a little more difficult, but the SendGrid install will set up the SendGrid key slots that are required. And easy to find in SendGrid, and beyond that, it's just verifying your domain with SendGrid if you haven't already. Anyways, we're going to use a DRF? No. And we'll say none there. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but we'll say yes to Celery, yes to Mailpit, just in case, yes to Sentry, because I feel like that's important. We'll say yes to white noise, but honestly, what I'm going to end up doing is changing the media file from AWS, the media file folder, or the static file folder, because that's going to be a problem. Should I have said white noise? Maybe I should have said no there. Who knows? We can always rebuild. No to Heroku. 4 for GitHub. And no for the local debug. You will say yes. I use FileZilla to transfer the environment variables, which is I don't know. I find it comical. I don't know if anybody out there still uses file transfer systems like that, but that's some old school web development stuff. You could, if you know the right commands to copy files from places to places, that's all it amounts to. So you got to get the environment variables into the project, and it is good practice to not include them in the repo that goes up into GitHub. That way keys stay safe. However, in my experience, having to pass the folder around, it just leaves fragments of the folder everywhere. It's still separate, I guess. That's okay though. We're gonna go in here real quick and build it, and then check on that droplet. All right, looks like we have the droplet. So the first thing we want to do is copy this. Go into bash. All right, so the way this works is we say SSH, let it load. SSH, and because there aren't any users at the moment, the default user is root, and it is the top level user. Go ahead and paste the IP address. Say yes. Have have a password on my key. Okay, so that put us into the server, which is great. We'll use that in just a minute. One thing I did want to do is I want to come back over to the DNS records here, and I want to make sure that we have the A records that we need. So that those have time to propagate. I'm hoping that they propagate while the video's recording here, so we don't have to stop. But we might have to stop, we'll have to see. Okay, so while that is propagating, and we do have to set up the actual server, let's just check the project here. Where did the code go? Let's pull this over here and get into big mode. Open a new terminal, Control Shift Tilde. I like that move. Pop that up. So far, okay. So let's just say Docker compose f Docker compose .local .y up build. All right, let's examine a couple of things in this project while that builds. One thing that I want to point out is that in the environment variables in production, we have a couple of things. One, secret key. You want to roll that if you ever expose it, right? So I would roll this. This is a URL to your admin, so it goes whatever URL you launch on. This is your admin URL that you can get to your admin with. So this one, if you change it, then that is what it is. Whatever it is, it's really good practice to use some funky thing like this. But then, like for instance, I have a client that's, I told him 100 times that the admin at URL is different, and then he went to finally go get into the admin and was like, "Hey, I can't get into it." He sent me a screenshot, and he was going to /admin, and I said, the URL is in the in files, but like, you know, now it clicks. Now they know. Now they get it. But now hopefully you don't run into that where you're like, "Where's the admin?" Because I'm trying to tell you, it's right here. It's in your INV files, and you can change it to whatever you want. But keeping it as some kind of code, something is pretty smart. Because I put in my URL, it came up with this. But if this is example.com, you're going to want to make sure that that's on the checklist of things that you want to fix. Trust me. But that's really it. As far as, okay, so we're going to need AWS keys. We are going to need the Sentry DSN. And where are SendGrid? Okay, so we'll need the SendGrid key, and this actually stays blank. So those are the environment variable things that we're going to fix, and that's in ims.production.django, just to be clear. This is actually where you would swap out your database information. So if you ever detach your database, you'd want to first copy everything if you have a live project that you need, like copy your, basically back up your database, take it over to a fresh install on a database cluster somewhere, and you know, do whatever database people do to import all that data, and then swap out your connection here, and you'd be good to go. And that's also, and that's in .ims.production.postgres. Okay, so the next thing on the checklist, that's allowed host, is checklist 1. Checklist 2 is if you go over to checklist number 2. Item number 2, sorry for the phrasing. If you go over into compose and you go to production and you go to traffic, if you want to go to this traffic.yml file, there's a couple of things in here that you want to look at. For one, we've got an email here. You have a host, and as you can see at the moment, it is doing what do you call that? No subdomain, and then www. So if you have a subdomain, if it's a blue, green, or you know, app dot, or you know, whatever your subdomain is over here, you want to make sure to add that here. If you're running it on 2 different servers, like if you have a testing server where you're looking at stuff, and you know, this is where you want to whatever your main server is, you put the the host name, and then on your test server you put that name here as well. As far as like closing off, doing a redirect from www to no www or vice versa, that's really like a DNS thing you could do, where you could set that up in your DNS and then remove whichever one of these here. But that's spot 1 in this file that you want to check. Spot 2 being right here under flower. So make sure that the host is what you want it to be within these files as well. So that's number 2. Number 1 is the allowed hosts in your environment variables file. Number 2 is the traffic YML file, and here's number 3. Number 3 is if you go into the apps folder and you go into the top folder, usually it's contrib, so it starts with a C, right? So it's typically at the top. And then you go into sites and you go into migrations and you look at migration number 3. You'll see that it's titled site, domain, and name. Okay. So if you scroll down in here, you will see that we are setting it to the project settings with this migration. So if you started out with example.com, then it's going to have example.com here. And is just like here as well. It's good to know. Not sure. Okay, I guess that reverts it to the default, but still, this right here will solve the issue. So the issue is that whenever you go to deploy, whenever you go to build the application, whatever domain is right here is going to permeate across the project and become the alias for whatever IP address the server's on. I think I blacked out a minute. Did I say that right? I think that's a good summary of what it does, right? So whenever you go to build, you have if you have the wrong domain here, you have 2 options. One, come in here and fix this and then rebuild. Like you have to basically like destroy the project, kill the containers, wipe them out, start over. Or if the project's built up and I don't know why you'd want to, I mean, I've done this several times, but you have to go into Django contrib site Django contrib site models. Here, I'll type it out right here quick. It's Django contrib site models site, which is a model object, and it's typically going to be the first one because you won't have more than one. There's not more than one by default in this migration file. So you can look at them and see which one it is, but it's going to be one of these, and then you want to target the host and you want to change it to whatever the domain name is, and then save that model, and then you can rebuild the project and it'll work after that. So that's a couple ways you can go about it. My suggestion would be that before you go to deploy, go ahead and just come into this migration file, change the domain right here, hit save. It won't mess up any project, anything locally or anything that's already been built or installed. But whenever you go to build a new project, a new version of it, it will set the right domain that way. Or you could just do it from the very start of your Cookiecutter Django build, put the right domain in there and not have to worry about it. It's completely up to you how you want to go about that. But those are the 3 things. You've got your allowed hosts, you've got your traffic file, and you've got your migration file where the domain is set. Beyond that, let's see what happened. Uh-oh. Unexpected in a file. Oh, it's not the right file. Did I get a bad build? I might have to come back and I might have to do these deploy videos in parts. Maybe I can set up the server first and then we might try to rebuild it. Oh, well, you know what? I do have another project running. Let me see if I can shut that off real quick. My bad. My bad. Never prepared enough. But if I can get this other project down, we'll spin this one up, take a quick look at it, and then we'll be off to the races. I'll go into setting up the server, getting Docker Compose installed, going through the logs, making sure all the errors are squared away. We'll be good to go. Come on, go down. Go down. Sorry, I'm smashing C right now on this thing, but it does look like it's building over there, maybe not. Okay, we have reactivity. Everything's moving now. Alright, I wish this had built while I was rolling, because it would be great if we could just keep moving here, but it looks like I might pause for a second and let everything sync up. So I'll see you in like a split second, but for me it'll be a few minutes. Okay, well, Docker has crashed. And the only way I can get it back is if I restart my computer, which means losing the recording or having to splice a video together. So what I think I'm going to do is try to speedrun this and not pull it up locally, because there's really no point. All we really got to do is we have to get it into a repo and get it onto the server. So we need to do a couple of things. One, we need to initialize the repo. So we can say git init. We'll say pre-commit install, and if you didn't see the pre-commit video, number 6, I believe, we talk about that a little bit. We'll say git add, git commit, deploy commit. Ooh. While that thinks about it, we'll go over into GitHub. We'll do a new repo. Call this deployment test. We don't want to put anything in the repo. We want to be able to push to it. Keep that in mind. I'll make it private. I mean, I'm gonna delete it later. I'm really bad about that. Everything I have is just filled with junk. Junk files, junk folders, test projects everywhere, but you know. Alright, so I'm going to use SSH, and I'm going to copy the link there. And we are installing pre-commit right now, so this will take a few minutes, it looks like. While that's running and while we're waiting to push to the repo, let's do this. The easiest way to get started here is to literally Google DigitalOcean Ubuntu. What are we using? 22.04? Setup, I believe, is DigitalOcean's great because they provide documentation as a marketing ploy. It's a resource for us, but it's also a great reason to use their products too. Synergy. Initial server setup with Ubuntu. So this tutorial is very fast, it's very lightweight, and it's going to get us through to deploying the application very quickly. So we'll get there in just a minute. Let's look and see. Okay, looks like we are linting right now. Let's see if we have to change anything. The joys of being a web developer, just passing things through checking systems that return errors that tell you what to fix in your own code. It's good though, it keeps everything clean. It's the way we like it. I didn't technically need to use pre-commit now that I think about it, but it's a force of habit. And we are good. Almost there. Okay. All right, so let's push that up to here. Yeah, no, I don't know why. Okay, we want to add the origin. And then we want to set the master branch, the main branch, to be politically correct, I guess. And then we're going to push it. Push it real good. Oh. There you go. All right, and then if we come over to the repo and we refresh, we are here. Voila. Now, from this point, if we make changes, we would do that in a branch, push the branch, merge the branch into main, then push main onto the server. But we're not going to be doing any changes into the code for this video. We have the code available to us to pull onto the server, so the next step is going to be the server itself. Sorry, I want to make sure I get the right one. That's not it. Oh, did we close out? Let's go back in. Okay, so step 1 is logging in as root. We just did that. Step 2 is going to be creating a new user. So we say add user. Can you see that at the bottom right? It's pretty small. I can maybe make it a little bigger. Here like that. Okay. It's kind of the best I can do. Maybe I could have made it a little bigger, but I don't know. I'll be fine. This is, I can zoom in here too. Sorry, I'm trying to accommodate the viewers out there. All right. So I'll just go ahead and add a user. You have to put in a password. Don't really have to enter any of this stuff. Is this information correct? I hereby swear. And for adding user, okay, so now we've created the user. Granting administrative permissions is number 3. So we just want to add that user to the sudo group so that it can use sudo. Makes me think of a Pokemon. Okay, so now that user is part of the user group sudo and can use sudo. That's what we want. All right, step 4, setting up firewall. UFW. So first it tells us to look at the app list for UFW. So we say UFW app list. We'll see that it has OpenSSH there. And then we want to allow UFW. This part right here, I want to like, flags, warning, hey, flash, flash, flash. This isn't in the tutorial, so listen to me real quick. We're going to do allow OpenSSH, even though it's already on the list. That's great. But then we also want to do UFW allow port, is it 443? We can just do HTTPS. Okay. So now if we look at UFW app list. Oh, okay. First we need to enable UFW. Let's do status. It's inactive. UFW enable. Yes. Okay. So if you don't have SSH available here, if it's not in the allow list that you set up, and you do this, it will kick you out. You won't have access except for through password. But if you signed up with SSH when you created the droplet, you won't be able to use your password. So I don't know exactly what you do in that situation. I'm sure there's a way to get in and fix the mess, but you could just delete the droplet and start over. You want to do that. However, I'm confident that that won't happen to us. I'll hit yes. We are back in there, but let's look at status. We'll see that we have 443. 80 is HTTP. 443 is HTTPS. I couldn't remember off the top of my head, so I just used HTTPS, which is a good trick. You can use either of them. We have OpenSSH, and we have 443. That's what we want. The 443 is not part of the tutorial, so just make sure, or not part of this right here. So just make sure that you are adding that. Otherwise, your website's not going to work. So anybody skimming through is probably going to miss that. I don't know what to tell you. The firewall is currently blocking all connections except for SSH, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so step 5 is enable external access for your regular users. So it's just telling us to basically go check to make sure that we can log in with our other user. So let me grab the IP address again. And we have another terminal open right here. SSH, new username at IP address. No. Logged into your root using password, then you can SSH. Yeah, we have to do this part first. I don't know why that's up there. Sorry about that. No, we jumped the gun. So if you're using SSH, we now have to copy over the SSH keys from the root which is the main ones that come from DigitalOcean that we set up, over into the user account so that the user can use them to log in as well, because they are your SSH keys. All right, so the command for that, and the command a command similar that you could also use for copying over the environment variables in the future, if you know what you're doing, is rsync, which lets you copy files. In this case, I am going to use it to copy over the SSH keys from the root SSH folder over to the user SSH folder. Go for the static, and it looks like this. Home username. All right, so those are copied over now. So you should be able to connect to your. Let's find out. Oh, yep, looks like that worked. There we go. So now we no longer need root. And that's the end of that tutorial. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to go find Ubuntu, and I have a link if I need to go find it, but it should be pretty easy to find. Install. We're going to need Docker and Docker Compose, which if you grab the right version of the install tutorial, you'll get both in the same tutorial here. So install the Compose plugin. Maybe it's this one. Go Linux. Sorry, you know what? I'm going to pause, and in just a second, I will have the link. Okay, sorry about that. It turns out that was the right link. All right, so this is the right link. We need to read a little bit, and then we'll know where we're at. But if you start to read this, you'll realize that there's a setup Docker repository on your Linux system link that goes really nicely with this. So we will start there. Install Docker. Oh yeah, so anytime you have Linux, basically, anytime you log into a Linux system, you basically have to run update sudo apt get update and sudo apt get upgrade. We're gonna let that run for a second. It might take a little bit because it's new install. Say yes. I guess I took the Y. All right, so the next command here let's use this. My bad. We'll go sudo apt get update. We already did that. Let's do sudo apt get install C8 certificate curl. Nine not upgraded, so it looks like we were good there. Get the key rings. I'm assuming that worked. I'm gonna need whatever this is. We'll start going down the list. And then and I have done this before. I'm acting like I'm being reckless, but no, this is definitely one of the ones that I've done. The whole point is we're trying to get Docker on. So we need to echo out this whole part right here. And then update again. Install the Docker packages next, and then we'll verify the Docker engine is running successfully by running the hello world. So I can just hit the copy right there. All right, and then we'll do the hello world, and it should give us a little hello from Docker. That's what we want. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to check, how do we do this? I think if I compose the version. Okay, well, it does actually look like Docker Compose is here. So the next thing we need to do, and I'm going to Google this as well, is how to generate SSH keys. This is going to be, yeah. So we just want to run SSH key gen. We are doing this in the user folder, but that's fine. Enter a file to save the key. We're going to do the default. Enter a passphrase. I'm going to say test. I like to use the passphrase. Okay. If we go pwd, we're in the user folder. If we do an ls-la, we're not going to be able to read anything because formatting's horrible. So let's try that again. ls-la, cd to the .ssh folder, ls-la. We have this ID underscore ed 25519.pub. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete this whole project once I'm done with this video. So I'm totally fine with showing you how to grab that key, but we are gonna need it. So I'm gonna say sudo nano to open up a nano editor on that file. So id underscore ed 25519 pub. No, wait. Is it cat? I might have to look this up. I know there's a way to spit it out, and that's all we want. It's just to be able to grab it, and it's harder than you think copying something out of Nano. That's not horrible, but it's not fun to figure out. All right, let's go back to GitHub, back to the repository. I don't know what happened to it. And deployment test. In settings, in wait, is this account? Is it an account level thing? I don't think I ever noticed that. I don't know how much of this I want to show. Where? Oh, right here. Okay. New SSH key. Right there. We'll call deploy server. Add SSH key. Okay. Now we need to go back to the repo. Wherever that might be. Right here. And we want to copy the SSH repo URL. And then back in the server, we can cd out of the SSH folder somehow. There we go, pwd. All right, we will want to go git, not echo. Is it clone? I don't know why I can't. Sorry, I'm having stage fright. Paste. That's the number 1. What happened? Test. Okay. From here, we want to cd. Wait. Well, let's ls-la to see what the project. It's deployment underscore test. Cd deployment underscore test. ls-la. That's our project. That's the one. All right. So the file that we want is right here. Docker. We want to be very careful not to run this. Okay. Local is a no-no on the production server. All right, we want to use the production YML file. But beyond that, it's essentially exactly the same. So we have our URL connected. We have our domain in all the right spots. The only blockers that I can see is the AWS API credentials might end up being throwing a fit. SendGrid won't be a problem until you try to log in. Traffic would be a problem if there's anything wrong with your URL or your host settings and traffic or your project URL. Everything else is pretty much internal. So those are the things you have to look out for. A Sentry won't throw a fit. You just won't get any reports to Sentry if you don't have your key, I believe. We'll see how that, if that's okay, if that works. But we'll fix everything if I can. I might do it in the next video. We'll see. But without further ado, let's go ahead and build this. So with certain versions of Docker Compose, you're either going to use the dash or not use the dash. On my local system, I use Docker dash compose. In this environment, it's not going to have the dash. In my case, it might for you. You want to kind of check both, see which one you have. I don't really know how to tell you what or why they're different. I think I might be using an older version of Compose locally. But we're going to run that file, and then we're going to run up -- build, and we'll just do the build. Production, Docker Compose production. It says there's no such file or directory. Maybe it is the dash. Maybe it is with the dash. Docker Compose production.yml build. Okay, so it doesn't have. Sorry, it's telling me that it doesn't recognize this file. I don't know. Am I spelling it wrong? Docker Compose file. And then we can paste that. No. Production YML. What if I just run up? Oh, this is odd. I missed a step. I'm going to end up clipping a lot of things out of this video. We have to also give... what is it? Add user to Docker group. Did we cover that over here anywhere? I know it says it somewhere. It's not in that. Okay. One more thing we need to do on the server before we try to build the project. My bad. I like to challenge myself by doing things by memory. Okay, so we already have the Docker group there. So we're in the current user, so we can use the variable of $_ _user. We just added them to the group. You can also run this following command to activate the changes to the group instead of restarting. But you can also run sudo reboot if you'd like. Verify that you can run command without sudo. Great. All right, let's try this one more time. Let's see what happens. It's not letting me go back. Okay, Docker pose. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. Let's double check. It says it can't find this file, but it's right there. It's no good. Oh, well, yeah, well, I got that part wrong. So let's try this then, production. Oh, it says, oh, geez. Okay, yeah. Well, now you know this is what it's going to look like if you didn't add your environment variables. Hello. All right. So, off the cuff. I should have taken notes, right? So we set up the Linux server. We install Docker and Docker Compose, and then we add the user to the Docker group, so that we don't have to use sudo to use Docker. Then we add our environment variables. So in this case, I'm going to use FileZilla to do this, and I have duplicate test deploy. I have it set up to where it's already got my SSH keys plugged in, which makes it convenient. I just need the host, and that should be it. I'll click OK. Okay, and then we need to find the correct project. Should be under projects, and then this one starts with a D. Deploy. Open that. This is what we want. Okay, and then over on this side we have the project folder from the repo, and that looks like the right level, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to go ahead and just drag all of them over. You do want to keep the same folder structure. You don't need your local environment variables within your project if you don't want them there. You know, totally up to you. But either way, now, and you know what else too? Just kudos to me for finally reading what it meant. It's telling me there was no file or directory where it was looking for it within the YAML files that set up the containers. So that was on me. I should have just read it. But either way, we're good now. Let's go ahead and get a -- build in here, and we're off to the races. It's beautiful, isn't it? I didn't build it in detached mode for a reason, because we're going to look at the logs as they come up. Let's just keep in mind we are deploying in under an hour, even with a couple of snafus here and there. Just the way it goes. You forget steps. It's good to write them down. I'll tell you them again. Set up your Linux server. Make sure you get your user, your firewall. And update. Always update your Linux server. Every time you log in, update it. They always need to be updated. And then install Docker. Compose. Make sure you have Compose. Just check. It comes with it usually if you use any of the methods that I showed you. Make sure you have it. Get your environment variables moved in. About whatever means. And then set up your SSH keys for GitHub. Then you just want to pull the project and build it. Of course, you need your SendGrid, your Sentry, your AWS, all of those things. You want to get those squared away in your environment variable files. Sorry, I don't know if I should pause it or if this is important to the thing. I think what I'll do is I'll pause for now, and then whenever I don't want to miss the logs dropping, but tell you what I'll do. I'll try to catch it. I'll see you in a blip. Okay, I'm unpausing it because it's moving along right now. I just want to point out that around step 36 to 40, this is where it installs all of the Python packages that are used. There you go. It's moving. It's moving now. 58. There. Now we're exporting the images. Containers are going to build. We'll see what kind of errors we get. Okay, so we have Redis. Everything's good. Postgres, everything seems to be good. Traffic, everything seems to be good. That's good. That's a good sign. It'll if you look at these level info is a good sign. You don't read the messages if you want to, but it's the errors you're looking for with traffic, and this will tell you whether your host is messed up or not. Basically, this also runs Let's Encrypt. It's very useful and important to kind of know that that's happening, because that's what's going to be one of the errors if your hosts aren't right. Postgres doing a little more work here. Ready to accept connection. That's good. Celery beat, celery worker, flower, Django starting up right there. More celery beat, more celery worker. Postgres, doing Postgres stuff. Let's see. Oh, that's it's setting all the celery beat tasks up, which is another tutorial I'm going to do, how to do scheduling tasks. More worker stuff, more celery beat stuff. There are a couple of errors in here that we can look up and try to fix. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but they're things that I've had to fix a few times, obviously. So, not a big deal, but it is kind of cluttering the space here. You know what? We'll scroll, but it's pointing up to... right here. So when we fix this, it'll fix everything else, but we'll look at that later. Okay, so now we have Django started up. We're getting this warning here about asynchronous iterators. I've been seeing that a lot lately. I haven't had a chance to look into what that means. But if we go to chaoticstaging.com, we're deployed. That's not it. Super easy. Okay. So AWS, you have to set up an S3 bucket. I'm not an authority on that. it's not that hard. There's tutorials on setting up buckets, and then you just have to get the right. Let's go look at them. I am totally trying to get out of doing that part. But you need your access key. You need a Django AWS. You need the secret key, and then you need the bucket name. So you set up the bucket. The bucket requires a group, a user, the bucket, and then you have to have certificates, or I forget what they call them. I think they're certificates. You have to, but if you do a wildcard certificate, that's the easiest one. But AWS is just a complicated mess. No matter what you do in there, you got to go through 100 steps. It's their users setup. But yeah, so if you end up using that, one thing that I will show you is that over in your settings in production, if we search for media, you might not want your static files to go there. You might not want your media files to go to AWS. You might just want to have them local. You don't. I think it throws an error if you don't choose at least white noise or AWS at the beginning whenever you initialize a project. But we should be able to go like that basically. Let's just double check with local. I go find static. Oh, it's not in here. It's going to be in base. Okay, I was missing a backslash. It's the same setting. Another thing. Oh, let's just put the backslash there. Hit save there. Again, normally I would make a branch, do the change, push the branch, commit the branch in GitHub. Something that I've recently learned to get used to. But it is not going to hurt us to do like this. And then we'll push it, git push origin main. Because we're pushing to main, we don't need to merge that. So let's go back to the server real quick. We'll take it down. And then we can say docker, we'll say git fetch. Git merge main. That was weird. Okay. Git pull, git merge, git pull. I don't know why I was saying main was already up to date, but either way, it looks like we have it back. So once you do that pull, notice I pushed it to GitHub. Now I pulled it from GitHub. GitHub never gets opened in that situation. If I was pushing from a branch, I'd have to merge it to main or pull that branch on here and build from the branch. It's really up to you at that point. GitHub, Git, and GitHub, all of that is really well designed in a way that's kind of like dealer's choice on how you like your flow. Docker. Okay, so Docker compose dot production YAML up. We'll go build, and then I'm going to do a detached this time. All right, then we can run remove Django container Python manage dot py migrate. Two things you don't want to do. You don't want to run the local production. You don't want to run the local YAML file on your server. It's bad juju, bad energy. Don't do it. You also don't want to run migrations. Not that you should have any changes that would warrant the migrations actually running, but you don't want to you don't want to unsync your repo by doing changes locally. There is one situation, as you can see, I just ran migrations. Now I have the project all run up and build. Anytime you do that, I never ran down. I pulled and I ran up again, up build, and it rebuilt the project. It's a way to, I don't know if it was designed this way, but it is a way to keep your downtime at a minimum. But if you run build and you end up having to do migrations, your site's going to go down until you run those migrations. So you want to do build, you want to migrate, then you're off to the races. Or maybe not. We have a bad gateway for some reason. Sometimes it's just because it takes a second. Sometimes it's because we broke something. It's logs. Ooh, that celery beet stuff's gonna get annoying. Maybe we should try to fix that real quick. Those logs kind of tell me that it's still like starting up, but no. All right, so we'll take it down. And then we will go back up and have the logs to look at. Traffic's fine. What was that? Okay, so we did break it by changing the static file. Off the cuff, I shouldn't have done that because I thought I knew what I was doing. You can totally change the static file. If I had another repo open, I'd show you. I'd have to like copy it out of this other repo to like show you how I did it, but it's not complicated. But basically, you can. I'm gonna go ahead and fix that. We'll use that as an example of how to quickly fix a mistake when you make one, because that's all I got here. But you can get around white noise if you need to. You can get around, or you can just upload your static files to white noise. It's not a big deal, you know. If you or up to AWS, because as you can see, it's saying that the backend is going to be your bucket. So you want to keep that in mind. All right, so we did the commit. Let's push to main. Enter here. And shut this down. This is the flow. This is as easy as it gets. Say get pull. And now that we have it, I can just go up. Do. Is it still? I thought I fixed that. I should have left things alone because I just built it, right? I changed this back to the way it was. Branch is up to date. Everything's up to date. Already up to date. Did I just run up and not build? That's probably what it was. It goes a lot faster to build when it's already been built if you do the no cache. So you can't run no cache on the up dash build, but if you just you don't use the dashes like a flag and you don't use up, you just say build, and then you can use dash no dash cache. I know that sounds silly, but you can look it up. Just look up docker build no cache. You can see the command for it, and that will give you a real, like, it'll really shake things loose if you need to use that. All right, now we're back. We are back up and running here. Sorry about that, but I made 2 separate changes, pushed them up to the server, no time flat. Like I said, a couple things is if I try to sign in right now, it'll let me create the account up until the point where it needs to send me the email. So it won't ever, like, I think it makes the user, and then it errors out. It gives a 500 error, which you would see in Sentry if you go to Sentry and you set up a project portal and get the SDN key and put that in. You'll get that 500 error because the logs only go so far on the server, and then you can't see errors on the page in production. So you need Sentry to kind of like see what's going on whenever things are broken. What else? AWS. The errors you'll get there are going to end up being probably Bootstrap's coming through a CDN right now, so it's not trying to call any local files. If there was an image or a style sheet or something that was needed to be coming from the style or the static folder in this project, it would be throwing errors. I don't know. They probably end up being 500 errors as opposed to console errors. So you want to be careful about that. If you end up running into that, it's a good chance that it's your AWS settings not correct in your environment variables. So that's about it. Email monitoring and your media files. And if you don't sort out your style or your static folder here, then you're going to want to make sure all your static files get uploaded to AWS or in your bucket. The last thing that I have on this subject of deployment is how to keep it running in perpetuity without needing the console, without needing the shell open. Because where it stood right there, if I closed the shell, the website would have gone down because it's a foreground process at that point. So the only thing we need to do here is we just need to say up -D. That'll put it in the background running, and then from there we can hit exit. That's it. Making a fool out of me. I forget how to. I could have sworn it was just exit. There it is. Yeah, I don't know why that didn't work the first time. But now it's still running. If we go back over here, hit refresh. Hopefully. Yeah, it's still up and running. So that's what I have in terms of deployment. I'm trying to think. I have a couple of other things. I need to get into DRF, Django REST Framework, myself, so that I can do a video about that. I have HTMX. That's one I'm about to go through, like a bunch of different ways to use HTMX, as far as I know, for as good as I can do. But I've been using it a lot, so I have a lot to say about that. Probably do several videos on HTMX and Django because it's just it's an amazing mix. And yeah, if you have any things that I might have missed, I'm thinking. Template tags is another one I've been thinking about, and the Sphinx documentation is a whole separate container that runs in the project that you can use. So I'm thinking about hitting that one as well. So probably have like 4 or 5 more videos on this that I'm going to do before I run out of material and disappear off the internet. If you like this, hit the thumbs up button, and follow, subscribe, do the thing that you do, because that'll encourage me to keep making videos if you're into that kind of thing. Until next time, this is the Really Coding Channel. My name's Jay.